Alors les amis, on se retrouve à Nice aujourd'hui. Ce n'est pas très beau, mais on est ici pour une bonne raison puisque Ford va battre le record du monde de la voiture électrique qui aura fait le tour de la Terre. Et oui les amis, et au volant on a Lexi Limitless, je vous mettrai le petit lien sous la vidéo. Donc c'est une jeune femme qui a déjà fait plusieurs records, notamment celui de visiter tous les pays du monde à 21 ans. Et elle va arriver ici avec le Ford Explorer. Donc on va essayer de lui poser quelques questions.
So hi Lexi, what was your motivation to do this trip?
My motivation to take an electric vehicle around the world was to not only push my own limits and challenge myself, but to also truly see what is possible to do in the EV. And I'm excited to tell you that even though there were some challenging times, especially when there was a not as good infrastructure for charging in some parts of the world, you can definitely drive an electric vehicle in Europe every day.
Is there a specific moment that stands out in your memory?
There was definitely some interesting challenges that we had to figure out along the way, especially with charging in places that don't have the usual EV chargers. Places like Zimbabwe, for example, I ended up having to stop and charge domestically, just using any household outlet I could find in tool sheds, in basements, in garages, and those chargers took around 30 or so hours to charge the car. So it at some points felt like a bit of a crawl towards this finish line, but we made it.
Is there some places you couldn't go because of an EV?
Turns out we actually didn't avoid too many types of places. I went through basically every type of terrain, from snowy mountains in Bhutan and Colorado to even crossing deserts as barren as the Atacama in Chile. And while it can be challenging because there aren't chargers, you just have to plan accordingly. So having a very well planned schedule is the key to EV travel really anywhere. Having an idea of how far you're going to be able to make it before you need to charge. And for me, I was able to workshop the solutions. Sometimes I've even had to use a portable battery, for example, to charge up while I'm having lunch, just a little bit to push it as far as I could go.
So, sometimes you use some solar panels. Was it really working or just for the try?
I did experiments with some solar panels in South America, but unfortunately the way that the solar panels was creating I'm not a tech person, the AC, the DC power, all of that gets lost on me a bit. But ultimately the solar panels charge so slowly, it didn't really work in terms of being any type of a sustainable solution that I would recommend.
Is there, let's say, a road or place that you discovered through this amazing trip that really stands out in your memory?
I mean, so many highlights along the way, especially since we went to 6 different continents. But one of the best roads that I was able to go on was, of course, the Great Ocean Road in Australia. There's nowhere else like it, being able to overlook the entire coastline. And I drove a really significant portion of the entirety of Australia, and that was definitely the best part.
What was the hardest to find? A clean bathroom or some charging station?
Oh, well, there's definitely a lot of uncomfortable situations that you can find yourself traveling in any point, but of course, not finding the best or the fastest chargers can be inconvenient, but that pales into comparison with some of the other things that happened along the way. I got sick multiple times, which ended up, slowing my progress significantly until I had enough time to recover and get back in the car. So very grateful to be here today.
What would be your best advice to somebody who would like to travel the same way?
Traveling in an EV is so different than any other form of travel, and I think it really does have a bit of a learning curve to it, especially when it comes to even the smallest details, like the way that you accelerate. It's amazing to see how much the car can recharge itself when you're going down big hills. Things like that you wouldn't really know unless you start driving in an EV, but I think planning is essential. You got to know where your route is, where you're going to stop, and you got to make the most out of your charging points, because you end up going to a lot of really unusual places and making pit stops that you might have never otherwise done, and you got to make the most out of those.
So in the end, how many hours did you do at the wheel?
Oh gosh. I was probably in the car for anywhere from 8, 10, 12 hours a day, every day for a couple, like 175, maybe 180, 90 days, something like that. A lot of hours went into this, but it was such a labor of love, and it's been such an honor and a privilege to have the opportunity to go on this incredible adventure. And although I am extremely tired and at times it was frustrating, I absolutely love it. And if I could do it all over again, I would.
Hey, thanks a lot, Lexi.
Thank you so much.
And get some
We're
rest.
so happy to be here.